Clearly this evolutionary progression from human to ape is not based on science. It's mainly just based on racial prejudice. Now, I don't know why the Jewish people specifically are picked on by Hitler. It's one thing that I find very confusing. I don't really understand. Out of all the religious groups of the world, he chooses the Jewish people out of all the other groups, minority groups, majority groups, whatever kind of group you can think of. He picks this one specifically. If anyone has any comments on this as to why they think that this is, I mean, let me know, because I'd really like to understand where that prejudice comes from, where it stems from. Like, where does his hatred come from? I mean, they don't just feel hate because they feel hate. They hate for a reason, and I'd like to know what that reason is. So, yeah, just to understand the whole mess from, the 30s and 40s and the advent of World War II and all that stuff. I mean, it kind of, understanding that would help me understand why all that shit happened, and, anyways. Again, going back to quote mines, he has a little quote mine of Richard Dawkins. He's one of my favorite authors. He uses a quote. I won't actually read it, but I mean, it's something that he's kind of picked on quite a bit. I think it originates from an interview that Richard Dawkins had on for the movie Expelled with Ben Stein, where he was talking about how if there was actually a higher intelligence that would, create life, what kind of form would it be? And Richard Dawkins just talked, like, hypothetically speaking here, where he was just kind of building up on a point. But I mean, that's the whole point of these quote mines, is to just take the part you want and then delete the rest, or just not include the rest. Where he was building up to a point where he was saying that the only thing that he could think of that could be intelligent enough to do that would be maybe, another culture or civilization of aliens somewhere else in the universe that has a superior knowledge and technology that might be capable of recreating life and triggering the evolutionary process on another planet somewhere. And they kind of cut it off there, and Richard Dawkins believes in that aliens created us. Well, there is a video out there on YouTube where Richard Dawkins talks about this interview, and he kind of goes on to what he was really meaning. And I mean, it wasn't any surprise, because he talked a lot about this sort of thing, this argument where you just kind of build up on something, and then you build up to your point, and then you make your point. And the point he was trying to make was just that, well, sure, if you have these highly intelligent, technical alien beings capable of creating life, you're then stuck with the problem again of then explaining, well, where did those aliens come from? Who created them? And then you have this infinite regression of creative beings, and that infinite progression has to stop somewhere. So that's just kind of the point he was making. So we'll probably be seeing that quote mine for Richard Dawkins a lot, unfortunately. The next part of his introduction is mainly just an appeal to emotion to get people to believe in God and in Christianity, and specifically. I wasn't entirely swayed by this argument. I did find it quite intriguing though, because like I said before, where I'm interested in understanding things, like mainly what interests me about these kind of conversations, writings of this sort, is just why do people believe what they believe? And I mean, I believe what I believe based on my education. I got a university degree, and it mainly was just study in a lot of these various molecular techniques, evolution, just built the foundation for a lot of these ideas. And so I guess that's where my bias is from, where these appeals to emotion just have no effect on me. It's just, you want to persuade me with something, show me the data, give me your references, and I'll take a look at that information, and that the data will persuade me, not some plea to emotion, some argument to emotion. But I found this really interesting because he talks about the Disney movie Up, where he went to, a friend recommended it to him, and he went to see it, and his friend said it was a really good movie and that it's really funny. But when he saw it, I've never really seen the movie, so I'm just basing this on what he said here, where he says, in a matter of minutes, a cute kid and his girlfriend grew to adulthood, got married, and loved each other with a deep passion as they grew old together. Then she died. I guess also they got married properly, that sort of thing. And I guess the whole movie is about what is it? Suddenly every joy-filled memory became unbearable, painful for the elderly man, and they captured that deep pain in caricature. And he also says on how he cried all that night with just thinking of the idea of having to outlive a loved one. And now, I mean, that is interesting, because religious beliefs very much seem to stem from the fear of death and what comes after, of being parted from loved ones forever. And religion seems to promise that you'll be rejoined with them, and I can see the pull of that, but it just doesn't seem, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And he also says that it's that God offers eternal life to every dying person, and most refuse his unspeakable gift. That's the real human tragedy. I mean, what I find interesting about that is just that, I mean, these are certain things that most theologian-thinking people think these are the important points that sway them, that they think are important, but they don't do anything to sway people like me.